Hey guys, and welcome back to another video, and today we will be going over my complete horror movie collection. Blu-rays, 4Ks, Era videos, Scream Factory, and so much more, so you're gonna want to stick around. But before we get into the video, guys, thank you so much for getting me to 1,000 subscribers. I am so happy, and I couldn't have done it without you guys. And if you want more movie-related content, you're gonna have to subscribe to the channel and tap that notification bell so you are updated every time I upload a new video. So without further ado, let's get to the horror movies. Alright, first up, it's going to be the classic, you know it, Friday the 13th, and this is the Scream Factory box set, okay, including all 8 original Paramount films: Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, Freddy vs. Jason, and even the remake from 2009, I believe. Yes, now I do like this box set. Now it is pretty bulky. Also, I will be sure to link up my Friday the 13th complete collection video where you could see my VHS, my vinyls, my CDs, all that good stuff. I'll be sure to link that up. Now, the disappointing thing about this collection is that there is no digital codes. You know, Scream Factory, Shout Factory, they release physical media, and it usually never comes with digital codes. A lot of these boutique labels, you know, Criterion, Arrow Video, so on and so forth. But you get the reversible artwork on these. So I picked out a good one here, which is Jason Takes Manhattan. Not a good movie, but a good cover. And then, oh, but this one stinks because this one doesn't have a reversible cover. Let me find one that does. I know one of my favorites in the series is this one, Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. So here, if Jason still haunts you, you're not alone. And then you have the other one, which is, this is a bummer too because it doesn't have that classic VHS packaging. It has, I think this is like an Australian poster, but you get what I'm trying to say is that they have the reversible artwork, which is usually what Shout Factory and Arrow Video, you know, people like that do. Favorite sequels, you know, Part 2 is hands down the best one. Like I said, Part 5, I love that one, A New Beginning, the one without Jason. And I also love Jason Goes to Hell because that's one of my earlier ones. You know, that one came out in '93, so I was like a kid back then. I remember that. They have the uncut director's cut. It even comes with a booklet here. Okay, so, you know, all that good stuff. And I also have the Paramount tin, so let's take a look at that. Okay, so compared to, you know, this bulky release, which is good, you know, it's good for shelf, it's good to like look at, but it's huge compared to this Paramount sleek tin set, which I've hung on to. I didn't get rid of it just because, you know, Scream Factory released theirs, and you know, people were always hating on this set for some reason. But anytime like a studio, like this is an official studio set, so I kind of dug that. And people are, you know, always mad that it's like has the sleeves and the cases, it doesn't have cases and things like that. And then here's another book with Crystal Lake Memories. Crystal Lake Memories, it's like its own hardback book, which you could find at Barnes & Noble and Amazon and things like that. So like I said, I will be sure to link up my Friday the 13th collection, which you could check the VHSs, and I'll go more in depth in the collection. So this was Friday the 13th. Now we're going to move on. Next, from Scream Factory, again, another horror slasher classic, Halloween, the complete collection, 15-disc deluxe edition, including all 8 original films plus 2 Rob Zombie films. So here is the booklet that comes with it, you know, facts, stills. This is my favorite sequel here, Halloween 3, The Night No One Comes Home, including Myers. And The Curse of Michael Myers, one of my favorite ones, again, you know, an early one from '95. So I always like those ones as well. It doesn't include reversible artwork, nor does it include digital codes, but I pulled out Halloween 2 here. This does include the TV cut the theatrical version and the television cut version, as well as part 6, including the producer's cut. So it's always good to have these, even though I prefer the theatrical for both films, for both Halloween 2 and Halloween 6. I don't like Rob Zombie 1, Halloween 1, but I liked Halloween 2. What's cool is the Halloween first one contains a 4.5 hour Michael Lives, the making of Halloween. You know, I like Rob Zombie, so usually he has those really good making of documentaries. Okay, so here is the Scream Factory Halloween Deluxe Edition 15 disc, out of print, going for crazy money. I got it right here. All right, let us move on. We dived into a little bit of the 70s and 80s slashers, but let's take it back to the 30s and the 40s and the 50s with the Universal Classic Monsters Collection. Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, the Invisible Man, the Phantom of the Opera, and the Werewolf, the Wolfman. Complete 30 film collection from 1931 to 1956. Now the thing with these old films, I love them. Now when you're gonna blind buy something, this is something good to blind buy, okay? Because these are just classic films, and of course I've seen, you know, the ones you need to see. Dracula, Frankenstein. I forgot the Creature from the Black Lagoon. He's a monster as well. And then you got the Abbott and Costello films. A lot of these films are less than 90 minutes long. They're like sometimes 70 minutes, 75 minutes. So right when it feels like it's about to get going, the movie ends. And that's how I felt about a lot of them. But still, like I say, classic films, all 30 classic monster films in HD. From the studio that defined the Hollywood horror genre. So you love horror films? You say you love horror films? Prove it to me by having this classic monster film collection. Okay? And you gotta show love to Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Mummy, the Invisible Man, the Phantom of the Opera, and the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And Bride of Frankenstein too. For all you ladies out there. This is just one of those things where I'm always wanting to make time to watch it, and it just never comes around. But one of these days, you know, you just have to take them one movie at a time. And we got the list of films back here. Okay, in the Universal Classic Monsters collection. Now we are going to stick with the black and white theme with the George Romero classic Night of the Living Dead in this Criterion Collection edition. The Pittsburgh classic, yes, to put the one horror movie to put Pittsburgh on the map, starring Judith O'Dea and Dwayne Jones. So in that original poster, look at that, look how great that looks. They're coming to get you, Barbara. When it comes to zombie films, this one is still my favorite, even though the consensus is Dawn of the Dead as the best zombie film. No matter how gory, no matter how fast, nothing can top the original Night of the Living Dead. On the same topic of, you know, are you even a horror fan if you never watched one of the classic monsters? The same can be said for the master of horror, Vincent Price. And you know, while I can't really say so much about what my favorite Vincent Price films, you know, House on Haunted Hill, are you even a horror fan if you've never seen one Vincent Price film, or have never even seen Michael Jackson's Thriller, for Christ's sake? But one of my favorites here is The Abominable Dr. Phoebes. Okay, and then also Vincent Price is known for those Edgar Allan Poe films, The Mask of the Red Death, The Pit and the Pendulum, The Fall of the House of Usher. So here I have the Vincent Price collection, 4 Blu-ray set, and it even comes with a booklet. This is from Scream Factory here, featuring nice artwork and stills and things of that nature. The Vincent Price collection. On the topic of the master of horror, next we're gonna look at the godfather of gore, Herschel Gordon Lewis, in this Herschel Gordon Lewis Feast. The films that you need to know about are Blood Feast, from 1963, the original gore classic. Okay, and then one of my personal favorites here, which is 2000 Maniacs. You know, the Dirty South, the Southern Psychos on the loose. And this is from Arrow Video, and I believe there is another maybe limited edition of this, but this is the regular edition. So it says Blood Feast here, but this one includes Blood Feast, Scum of the Earth, 2000 Maniacs, and Moonshine Mountain. That's what it's called. So there's actually 4 films on each of these, and then Color Me Blood Red. That's another one. The Wizard of Gore, The Gore Girls, She Devils on Wheels. So it's almost like, you know, Roger Corman-esque B-movie, really bad movie. But once again, you're a horror fan, then you absolutely need to see Blood Feast for the origins of gory films. If you've ever seen Serial Mom, the movie directed by John Waters, there is a great homage to Blood Feast in there. The goriest, bloodiest pictures ever seen. Not the best movies in the Herschel Gordon Lewis Feast box set. Okay, we're gonna kind of switch it up and go to our first 4K title. But since we were on the topic of gore and crazy movies like that, we got Maniac. I warned you not to go out tonight. This is from Blue Underground, and yes, this is a very controversial film. A video nasty, I believe. And yes, the dirty, grimy streets of New York has a killer on the loose. This is known for its gory practical effects by a young Tom Savini in this one. So once again, just a gritty, grimy movie in a 4K edition here. We got the 80s cult classic, Maniac. Okay, we are gonna stay with the cult classics, and the next one is my favorite. To avoid fainting, keep repeating. It's only a movie. Only a movie. You know it. The Last House on the Left. Wes Craven's first film starring David Hess. The story of Mary and Phyllis, who just want to go to a concert and score some grass and run into an escaped maniacs, Krug and his vicious gang of escaped convicts. And then, little do they know, they run into The Last House on the Left. Okay, in this Arrow Video, you know, Arrow really came through with this excellent special edition here. This needs one of those home video history releases, because the first time I remember watching this was on VHS, okay, sometime around the 90s. And then it got, MGM did their DVD release, okay? And then it's been pretty quiet after that MGM release, which was a good release, until we got this really awesome, badass release from Arrow Video. This also includes the Krug and Company cut, which is just like 1 or 2 different scenes, right? Aren't all director's cuts or unrated cuts, aren't they like that? It's just one scene that's different, and it's not even that big of a deal. And then the rest of the movie is the same. And then here you have a bunch of lobby cards. Now, this is the original theatrical poster, but there is a steelbook out there somewhere with that VHS. Here, this is that VHS cover. So there is a steelbook out there somewhere that has this cover. Now, this is like the VHS I rented, you know, with this cover. I might even have it somewhere in the vault, okay? And like I say, this is just a favorite movie of mine. Also included in this limited edition, 3-disc limited edition, is the CD soundtrack of The Last House on the Left, which features music written by David Hess, you know, And the Road Leads to Nowhere. For all you Eli Roth fans, if you remember Cabin Fever, his first film, a lot of the beginning of the film contains that music and The Road Leads to Nowhere and things like that. So, a very controversial film, a very divisive film. You either love it or you hate it. And also a very good remake from 2009, which Arrow Video is about to release. Here is the 1972 classic from Wes Craven, The Last House on the Left. Okay, we continue with our Wes Craven series with his follow-up film, The Hills Have Eyes. Not one of my favorite films. It never has been one of my favorites. This also has a very popular remake from 2006. It seems to be a favorite amongst horror fans and movie fans. You always hear The Hills Have Eyes being mentioned as one of the greatest horror remakes, especially from that time of the early to mid 2000s. Okay, so here we have the Arrow Video special edition, limited edition version of The Hills Have Eyes, directed by Wes Craven. The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, which is supposed to be, one of the worst horror films ever, and in a nice packaging from Arrow Video. Definitely not one of the best sequels. This film is famous for having a dog flashback. You know how kind of Silent Night series Part 2 has a lot of, it's basically Part 1 with a bunch of flashbacks. That's how Hills Have Eyes 2 is. And yeah, this here says 1984. So this was either before he shot Nightmare on Elm Street or right after. Maybe it was released after Nightmare on Elm Street, something along those lines. So from Arrow Video, here is The Hills Have Eyes Part 2. Okay, we continue with the Arrow Video Special Edition Region B release of Carrie, starring Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie, John Travolta, Nancy Allen. Yes, one of my favorite films right here. Directed by Brian De Palma and adapted from Stephen King's very first novel about a young, awkward high school girl with telekinesis. And little do her classmates know the power that she is about to unleash on them on prom night. Also, Amy Irving, can't forget about her, as Sue Snell. Okay, and we got Carrie White, terrifically portrayed by Sissy Spacek here, and Piper Laurie as her mom. Okay, both were nominated for Oscars for their performances. And what can I say about this movie? Excellent movie. They're all gonna laugh at you. The epitome of the crazy religious mother and her daughter, what goes on inside that house. And also, don't forget the sequel, The Rage Carrie 2, which also has the return of Amy Irving. Also, there was a made-for-TV remake, and there was also a remake with Julianne Moore and Chloe Grace Moretz. Hated it. Gotta stick with the original from 1976. Also, PJ Souls, who you know from Halloween and Rock and Roll High School, is also in this as well. And Edie McClurg, I'm listing them all here because this is a horror classic and a high school classic. Also, for all you B horror movie fans, check out the movie Evil Speak with Clint Howard, which is kind of a role reversal on this film, like how this deals with the girls and the women's side of things. Evil Speak deals with the young men and their bullying and his telekinesis over them. So make sure you check out both of those films from 1976. Brian De Palma, Carrie. Okay, we're gonna fast forward from the 70s to the 90s with Candyman. This was also released on Scream Factory, but I opted for the Arrow. And it is Region B. It just has the 18 banner on the back here. Candyman from 1992, also based off of a short story from Clive Barker called The Forbidden, starring Tony Todd and Virginia Madsen. Excellent movie. I almost compare it to Silence of the Lambs, where it's a little more than a horror movie. It takes itself a little bit more seriously. Also with Virginia Madsen and Tony Todd, you also have Casey Lemons, who is a film director, has directed Eve's Bayou and even the latest Whitney Houston film, I Wanna Dance with Somebody. Inside this book here, you know, you get a bunch of storyboard, animation, and things like that. Candyman also had a sequel, Farewell to the Flesh, which moved from Cabrini Green, Chicago to New Orleans. It's actually not that bad. Not as good as the first, but not the worst thing ever. And also there was recently a remake, a Jordan Peele produced, Nia DaCosta directed. Once again, I really enjoyed that remake, although it was very divisive because, you know, it seems to be woke. From 1992, we dare you to say his name 5 times, Candyman. Okay, now that we looked at my Arrow video collection, it is time to look at the Scream Factory collection, over 17 titles. So let's get to it. Our first Scream Factory title is The Burning, the summer camp slasher classic in all of its gory glory, first time on Blu-ray. Okay, you got a slipcover here, and once again, Scream Factory always provides the reversible artwork. Oh, would you look at that? It says a Harvey Weinstein production, but this is also known as having starred Jason Alexander and Holly Hunter. So this is almost like a Friday the 13th type of thing in the woods, and it famously has that scene there where it's in the middle of the river and they're on the boat, and this guy just pops out with those shears and chops them all up. Like it says, in all of its gory glory, gather around the campfire to die. The Burning. Psycho 2 and Psycho 3 are our next titles. 22 years later, and Norman Bates is coming home. So if you thought, hey, what's the point of 10-year-old sequels, 20-year-old sequels? This was one of the very first ones to do it. You remember Psycho was released in 1960, and this one came out in 1981 or 82. Psycho 2, and you have the original cast members, Anthony Perkins and Vera Miles, and you also have Meg Tilly in here. And Psycho 3, which was the Anthony Perkins directed entry, and you would think it would be good since he directed it and he would know the source material better than anybody, but this one is not so good. However, it is coming back. Over time, we're realizing it may not be as bad as we once thought. This is getting re-released in a Arrow Video Region B collection, 4K, including Psycho 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So let us move on to our next titles. I got lucky snagging a slipcover with Silent Night, Deadly Night. I bought this pretty late in the game. Not one of my favorite 80s slashers, but the classic, VHS cover here that we all remember looking at the video store, as well as the other 4 sequels. Silent Night, Deadly Night 5 was also a famous poster with the little boy surrounded by all those demonic toys. B80s goodness, gory goodness here. I have mentioned before the sequel, which is just a bunch of flashbacks. Very few newer scenes shot, but that one is famous for Garbage Day. So we have the collector's edition here, the Silent Night, Deadly Night. I have not picked up the others. There is a part 2 release, and then there's a release from Vestron, I think, which has 3, 4, and 5. But in my honest opinion, they're all to be worthy, if that. So let's move on to our next titles. The precursor to Halloween is Bob Clark's Black Christmas, starring Olivia Hussey and John Saxon. Olivia Hussey, from Romeo and Juliet and Psycho 4, and John Saxon, who you know from A Nightmare on Elm Street and those countless Italian films. Another one that had a pretty underrated remake from the 2000s. It's actually very gory. The opposite of this version, which is not too gory, just like the original Halloween. It's one of those good, creepy, almost comforting movies. You know how you hear of comforting horror movies? I think this is one of them, because they're in a sorority. It's a very big, comfy looking house, and it's Christmas. It's decorated for Christmas. And you know, just like all those Christmas movies, there's something very comforting. Even though there is a masked, escaped psycho killer on the loose who just wants to get in and kill them. And he's living and staying in the attic, and they don't know that. So, very good suspenseful film. Also, Margot Kidder is in this. Fellatio 2460. Bob Clark famously also directed A Christmas Story. You know, You're Gonna Shoot Your Eye Out, 24 Hours of a Christmas Story on TBS. He directed that, and maybe one other film that is not registering with me right now. It just shows what versatility he had to direct a horror film, a slasher film, and then to direct a kids film. Okay, from the 70s, starring Olivia Hussey, Black Christmas. Now we are going into 80s cheese territory with the Sleepaway Camp series. Sleepaway Camp 1, Sleepaway Camp 2, Unhappy Campers, and Sleepaway Camp 3, Teenage Wasteland, which might be my favorite. You know, one of those where it's just more funny than scary. But I remember good memories of Sleepaway Camp, you know, during the heyday of DVD and the internet. You know, when you're finding out about all these movies that you never heard before. And Sleepaway Camp was definitely one of them where it's like, you gotta watch this movie. That's when I would blind buy movies, you know, back then when I was much younger and could afford to just buy a movie without having ever watched it. But then over time, I come to see, you know, the other two films, Sleepaway Camp 2 and Sleepaway Camp 3. And these were also very famous VHS covers, at least part 2 or 3. One of them where it had the backpack and you would see Freddy's glove and Jason's mask, you know, and that was just a hook to get someone to rent the movie, to watch the movie. Angela, or is it Angela, in Sleepaway Camp. Another cheesy, not as bad as its reputation, is Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation from 1994, starring Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger. And this one is written and directed by Kim Henkel, who wrote the first one. And also, this was originally titled The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I guess was changed. And I kind of just always like this movie. It's low budget, it's cheesy, it's bad, but I like it. And it's one of the few that could actually capture that dinner scene, you know, the chaos and the confusion and the insanity of the dinner scene. Another one that captured that was The Beginning from 2006. So those are like my favorite ones in the series. Here we go, the fourth one in the series, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. Okay, I'm kind of breaking it up here because this isn't a horror film, but this is in my Scream Factory collection. We have Death Becomes Her, starring Meryl Streep, Goldie Hawn, and Bruce Willis. Famous for its cutting-edge VFX from Robert Zemeckis. Also, I see here Dean Cundey is the director of photography. So, for all you horror fans, Halloween fans, Dean Cundey, the DP of the original Halloween, does this right here, Death Becomes Her. Like I say, very funny, cutting-edge VFX for the 90s, 1992, I believe. Death Becomes Her. We're staying in the 90s with Tales from the Hood from 1995. So this is like the street, the hip-hop, the urban version of Tales from the Crypt, directed by Rusty Cundiff. And I believe he did Fear of a Black Hat, if I'm not too mistaken. That is a parody of, like, this is Spinal Tap, along the veins of CB4. Okay, so this comes Tales from the Hood in this reversible artwork. This artwork is great. I remember watching this movie all the time on HBO and recording it off of HBO, and I always loved this one. You know, you have the crooked cop story, you have like the slave master story with all the little dolls coming to life. That one was a good one. And there's an abuse story in there with David Alan Grier, which is really disturbing. And also the ending, I really like the ending. I always enjoyed this one from 1995, Tales from the Hood. Now, speaking of Tales from the Crypt is Bordello of Blood, the second in the Tales from the Crypt Present series. This poster is really good, and this one was the theatrical poster. The second in the series, Demon Knight, was the first with Billy Zane and Jada Pinkett. That one, I don't know. They're okay, but this one I enjoyed more because it's like nudity, right? That one is just, it's more appealing. And they stopped the Tales from the Crypt movies here. They only made 2 films, Demon Knight and Bordello of Blood, and I have some of the series there. So here is The Crypt Keeper in Tales from the Crypt Presents Bordello of Blood. Okay, we're gonna stay in the 90s with Pet Sematary 2. I kind of really like this slipcover here, and remember the theatrical VHS artwork starring Edward Furlong from T2. So you definitely need to see Pet Sematary 1 just as a horror completist. But for some reason, I like Pet Sematary 2. The only thing I can remember, though, is that beginning when his mother dies on the electrocution. I know Pet Sematary 1 was remade, didn't see it, don't own Pet Sematary. So that's kind of one of those things I'll just watch on HBO Max. So here from the 90s, 93-ish to Pet Sematary 2. But this one I always love from 1995 is Village of the Damned, starring Christopher Reeve, Superman, and Kirstie Alley. Okay, and this is a remake. The story is the Midwich Cuckoos. And then they made the 1960 film, and then this is the 1995 film. I always loved this poster. You know, saw it on video over and over and over and over and over again. I used to just really, really love watching this movie. And, you know, the creepy hair and the creepy eyes and just the flashing of the eyes. Always liked this movie. And this one has some pretty cool special features as well from 1995, Village of the Damned. Another one I really like. This movie is pretty underrated. It doesn't get talked about nearly as much is The Strangers with Liv Tyler, and this one is from 2008. Very minimalist horror slasher. Why are you guys doing this to us? Because you were home. Okay, I really enjoyed this movie, and this is another one with a lot of jump scares, but it's just very effective. And this also had a sequel, Pray at Night, very forgettable, don't even remember this. But this one, now this, I don't remember this being the theatrical. It could have been the theatrical. I just remember that poster with Liv. This one. This is the poster I remember. Maybe they couldn't get rights to that. That's the poster. I don't know what that one was. Maybe this was the teaser or something like that. But The Strangers are really good. If you like Halloween, I think you're really going to like The Strangers. Okay, now we have our last 2 Scream Factory titles here. I don't have much to say about either of them, so let's just get to it. First, we have Raising Cain with John Lithgow, and this is another Brian De Palma film, and this is just a split personality. Another one very famous for its poster, for its VHS cover. That's all I could really say about Raising Cain. Another one of these endings, shocking endings. And also that motel scene, Brian De Palma always has those extensive 10-minute scenes where you're going from the top to the bottom to the parking lot to the garbage dump and it's all one take. So, worth watching for those types of things. And also from Canada is My Bloody Valentine, okay, the Canadian slasher. This one also is uncut. I have good memories of this as a kid because I had a neighbor who had an extensive movie collection as well, and My Bloody Valentine was in there, so that's how I remember first seeing this movie. So that about does it for my Scream Factory collection, so let us move on. We're gonna quickly get into some 4K titles. I don't have many of them, but what I have packs a punch, including the 40th anniversary of Alien, in space, No One Can Hear You Scream, starring Sigourney Weaver and directed by Ridley Scott. Okay, is it a horror film? Is it a sci-fi film? A little bit of both, right? It is, you got that boom, alien burst that comes out of your stomach or your chest. So a classic here from 1979 is Alien. In space, No One Can Hear You Scream, and just when you thought it was safe to get back in the water, Jaws from Steven Spielberg. Another one where it is this a horror film? Is this an adventure film? What is this film? Well, it is considered a horror film. Have you ever been attacked and killed by a shark? It is horrible. Also included in this package is this booklet, including stills and information and interviews and all sorts of neat things for your Jaws collection. From 1975, we got Steven Spielberg's breakout hit, Jaws. Definitely my favorite horror movie of last year was Smile. Once you see it, it is too late. Really, really enjoyed this one. And also, I don't really see the comparisons of It Follows and The Ring. I think people are just saying that because they didn't like the film, and they're just mad that Barbarian never got a physical release. And I got this nice little 4K with a slipcover, and there's even a steelbook coming later. So from 2022 is Smile. From 1997 is I Know What You Did Last Summer. Jennifer Love Hewitt, Freddie Prinze Jr., Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Ryan Phillippe, and also Anne Heche. Can't forget about that. You see that beautiful original theatrical poster art. So here is I Know What You Did Last Summer, the hook killer, the fisherman killer. The story doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but it is fun to watch, and also not as gory as Scream, but there's just something really fun about this movie. Sexy young teens in the fight for their life. In 1997's I Know What You Did Last Summer. We did Brian De Palma's Carrie, and now we have John Carpenter's Christine. Both of those films, Carrie and Christine, are both based off of Stephen King novels. But a good little suspenseful film here about a killer car and how Artie transforms from nerd to psycho. So you gotta see this one from the 80s, I believe 83, and also a very good, synthesizer soundtrack. John Carpenter always comes through with the soundtrack, so this sounds a little bit like Halloween 3, and it's from around that time. John Carpenter's Christine. Okay, now we're sticking with our Stephen King series with Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. And Stephen King famously dislikes this film because, Stanley Kubrick is artistic and decided to stay true to his vision of what he felt The Shining would be, starring Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall. And Stephen King did his version of The Shining, a made-for-TV movie in 1997, which did not go over well by fans and audiences. It was panned. 10-year-old, 20-year-old, 30-year-old sequels. Who needs or asked for a sequel to The Shining? Well, there was one, Dr. Sleep, once again based off of the Stephen King book. And to my surprise, this one was very well done, starring Ewan McGregor and directed by Mike Flanagan. Also included in this is a director's cut running damn near 3 hours. Two very good Stephen King adaptations here, The Shining and Dr. Sleep. On the subject of one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, Stanley Kubrick, comes the master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock, in the Alfred Hitchcock Classics Collection, Volume 1. And in here, the horror films I'm going to highlight are, of course, Psycho, one of my favorite ones, and The Birds. Okay, now Psycho from 1960. We all go a little mad sometimes, and in this 4K edition is included the uncut version, which we all know is just 1 or 2 more seconds, and then the rest of the movie plays as is. So we mentioned my other Psycho collection, which includes 3 sequels and a remake, and now I have the 4K cut and uncut version here. And also was the follow-up to Psycho, which was The Birds, starring Tippi Hedren. That one I have really good memories of watching this in English class during freshman year. Whatever you learn in English class. Foreshadowing, symbolism, this, that, and the third. So I remember always watching those old movies, and The Birds was one of them. There we have The Birds and Psycho in these Alfred Hitchcock 4K Complete Classics collection. Don't fuck with the Chucky, the Chucky collection. This includes Child's Play 1, 2, 3, Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, and Curse of Chucky. And there is also a Chucky TV series about to go in its 3rd season. While the first one is such a classic, you know, I personally have a love for part 2 in that famous toy factory sequence at the end. And also part 2 has Jenny Agutter, you will all know from An American Werewolf in London, and also Christine Elise, who you know made appearances on Beverly Hills 90210, and also her along with Alex Vincent are on the Chucky series. And that series actually continues after Seed of Chucky. You know, Jennifer Tilly kind of takes over the 2nd season. The 1st season is good, the 2nd season not so much, so let's hope that the 3rd season will, you know, give us a little bit more of what we want, which is diabolical Chucky in the Chucky collection. Okay guys, we finally made it to the end. Thanks for sticking with me. Can you guess what our final title is? It's my favorite movie of all time. I don't know how many times I bought this movie and I say I'm never gonna buy it again, and I just can't help myself and I buy it. From 1974, Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and this is the latest 4K edition from Dark Sky Entertainment. The follow-up is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 in this Region B Arrow video. I believe one of Arrow's first Blu-ray releases here. This also includes Tobe Hooper's early films in Eggshells, his student films. Look at all this stuff. Okay, so we have the Dark Sky Texas Chainsaw Massacre Steelbook, and then we have the Second Sight recently released 4K edition of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which includes this hardback book with all these illustrations and essays and all that fun, good stuff right there. And once again, these lobby cards. Very nice packaging from Second Sight. Ran me a pretty penny, but once again, I sometimes can't say no to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and comment down below. Let me know what your favorite horror movies are. Okay guys, I will see you in the next video.